The 20th of October 2020. We have observed unpleasant developments across major cities in Nigeria, with scores of young people killed and many injured as a result of the ongoing NSAS peaceful protests led by young people. These extrajudicial killings and violence are highly condemnable and unacceptable. We have observed with dismay the recruitment and deployment of hoodlums and thugs to disrupt and hijack the protests by unpatriotic Nigerians. These have occasioned the death of innocent citizens, the destruction of government and private property, and the disruption of economic activities in some cities around the country. Our sincere sympathy goes to the families of the people who lost their lives in the process, and we pray the Almighty consoles them in this moment of grief. We urge the federal government to ensure adequate and immediate compensation to the victims of police brutality, banditry, and terrorism. As a matter of urgency, the Nigerian Army should identify the armed men in military uniform who attacked innocent protesters at the Lekki Tollgate in Lagos on October 20th, 2020. We also urge the Nigerian Police Force to identify officers who attacked peaceful protesters in cities across the states. Similarly, the sponsors of the human rights violations and violence perpetrated by thugs across the Federation must be made to face the full wrath of the law. We urge the federal government to accede to the demands of the youth and ensure comprehensive reforms in the security sector. As young parliamentarians, we are committed to the yearnings of Nigerian youths, and to this end, we will be taking all necessary actions within our purview to ensure justice and accountability. In view of the foregoing, the Young Parliamentarians Forum of the 9th Assembly wishes to submit as follows. 1. The reconvening of the National Assembly. The National Assembly should, as a matter of urgency, reconvene plenary for an emergency session to discuss alleged killings of peaceful protesters. In addition, an investigative public hearing on the loss of lives and human rights violations resulting from police brutality is highly recommended. On national security, the forum calls for comprehensive police reform. The epicenter of the current protest is the acts of police brutality by the police and its proscribed tactical unit, SAS. The federal government must demonstrate a genuine commitment to reforming the police and protection of youth and citizens from police brutality, which has resulted in several avoidable deaths. Immediate inauguration of the Nigerian Police Council and the constitution of the Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission, which should include youth representation. On education, we commend the effort of the leadership of the National Assembly towards resolving the lingering ASU strike and further call on the federal government to take concrete steps to end the incessant strikes by ASU. This should include sustained dialogues and negotiations to accede to the demands of ASU to enable students to go back to school. The government should consider one-year tuition fees palliative as compensation to the students who have been disadvantaged due to the prolonged strike action. Number 4, national orientation and youth development. We call on the federal government to revamp and put into use all the 11 citizenship and leadership training centers across the country and establish new ones in the states where there is none. We call on the federal government to revamp and establish school acquisition and vocational training centers across the Federation. We call on the federal government to strengthen its social security net to address the peculiar needs of the youth, women, aged, and persons living with disabilities. We call on the federal government to improve access of young persons and women to government and decision-making process. Also, the government should empower youth and women through special social development and mentorship programs. There is the need for enlightenment programs by agencies such as National Orientation Agency to educate and enlighten the general public on the dangers of drug abuse, sexual harassment, and gender-based violence. In conclusion, we note that the current situation begs for dialogue, justice, and reconciliation. We implore the federal government to provide leadership in national reconciliation, peace, and justice through inclusive and transparent dialogues with citizens and ensure individuals and institutions who violate constitutionally guaranteed rights are held to account. We urge the protesters to remain law-abiding citizens and peaceful. The YPF wish to strongly call on the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President MUHAMMADU BUHARI, to address the aspect that these businesses are covered by insurance. And for the victims, we made a call for adequate and immediate compensation to the victims of police brutality, banditry, and terrorism. The need for further solutions and ways out also comes to play. So that's why we as a forum, this is our position, and we have articulated this position to the leadership of National Assembly, which includes both the Senate and the House of Representatives, and it will, inshallah, be considered. On the little squabble that happened in the House the day before yesterday, it was a misunderstanding, clearly. Our colleague here wanted to make a contribution, and he wanted to come under a matter of privilege. Now, there was a misunderstanding because the Deputy Speaker who was presiding assumed he was coming to give, to present an order, matter of urgent public importance. That was why he said, we are only, by our rules, we are only allowed to take 2. But my colleague here wanted to come under matter of privilege to explain what he wanted to proffer as a solution. So that it was a misunderstanding, and it's an internal House matter and has nothing to do with the protest, I must say. Thank you. Is that what his recommendation was? Because I'm not aware. Oh, nice. Good to know. So, like I said, it's a House matter, and it's been handled within the House. So, further comments would aggravate the situation. I would like to step that down, please. Thank you. On social media alone, you will notice there's been a concerted effort by members of the National Assembly to reach out to their constituents through social media, sometimes physically, sometimes verbally, to explain to them the need for peace, to eschew violence and embrace peace, to let this process follow a natural course. You've started protesting. These are genuine concerns. Police brutality has no place. We shouldn't condone that. And like I said here, we condemn it in totality. But I will tell you something. Nigeria is diverse, and police brutality or SARS means different things to different people. Where I come from, we support what SARS is doing in my constituency. We are faced with banditry, and SARS has been in the forefront to battle that. So for me to say, for my constituents to say, end SARS completely, I don't think that's a solution for us. However, we must condemn police brutality in whichever form. So that's what we've been doing, and members of the National Assembly have been doing. Oh, you have copies?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Want to keep this one?